Representatives of 14 million AFL-CIO members gather in Florida for the 7th Constitutional Convention. As they ended their deliberations, the delegates heard from the President of the United States. AFL-CIO President George Meany introduces Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, delegates to the 7th Constitutional Convention of the AFL-CIO, and our friends and visitors, the President of the United States.
I don't know where a lot of people will be standing in the battle for freedom and progress that lies ahead in the years in the future, but I do know where American labor has stood in the past. I do know where American labor stands tonight, and it stands right in the first rank, unflinching and unafraid. And I believe that you'll still be there when the summer soldiers have fled the field of challenge. There was a time not long ago when the American labor movement fought on a very narrow front. The question then was one of sheer survival, keeping the trade union movement going in the face of bitter opposition. Later you fought for a national minimum wage and maximum hours law, not just for the right to work, but for the right to work in dignity, in decent conditions, for a fair wage. There are many men in this hall tonight, perhaps some 2,000 of you, who bear the honorable scars of that victory. Labor could have sat back then and said, "I'm all right, Jack, I've got mine." But you didn't. And a few men of compassion and wisdom looked beyond the assembly line and beyond the craftsman's bench to see how their fellow Americans were faring. They knew that security and prosperity in America, to be meaningful and to be lasting, must be shared by the greatest number of people. They believed in the motto, "the greatest good for the greatest number," and they still do. And you supported the kind of men and you fought for the kind of candidates who propose those programs, who vote for those programs in Congress, who stand up to be counted whether the polls are high or whether the polls are low. And your president knows what your fight has meant for America in my time. And I want you to listen to the roll call of what we have done together. Medicare. Already 4 million Americans have paid their hospital bills, and more than 5 million have had the Medicare pay their doctor bills. Aid to education. Already 9 million needy school children have been helped in the elementary and secondary schools, and nearly 1.25 million college students. Many of them, the sons and the daughters of union families, now receive federal help in education grants and loans that see them through college. And the hope of every American parent when that first babe is born is to hope the day will come when they can see them get a college education. And that day has come. And minimum wage protection. We have brought over 9 million American workers under the minimum wage with the new minimum wage bill. And by next February, we will have raised that minimum by 35 cents in our time. And that's 10 cents more per hour than when I cast one of my first votes in Congress to make the minimum wage the law of the land 30 years ago and guarantee them at least 25 cents an hour. And now to the poverty front, more than 5.5 million Americans have been lifted above the poverty line. And employment, we've added 6 million workers to our labor force, and we've set a constant record of 81 long months of solid prosperity to break all the records in American history. In civil rights, we've cleared away the last big obstacles to the right of every American in this country to vote, to be judged for a job on his skill and not his skin, to enjoy public accommodations and facilities as a free man should in a free country. And the cities, we finally got the program that we need to build model cities. Blight and decay and despair can be banished from our life. But we're going to need the muscle, the great, big, strong muscle of the American labor movement to turn our bold ideas into shining realities. And we're going to need all of you. And pollution. Pollution, for the first time we recommended, and for the first time we passed the bills through the Congress to give us the weapons to make an all-out attack on the filth that fouls our water and our air so our little children can breathe clean air and drink clear, pure water. Now for the consumer protection. We've ended the packaging tricks that once plagued the American housewife for so long. We have spared our children from dangerous and deadly toys. We have shut the door to unsafe products that makes the home a booby trap for the unwary. We have acted against the moneylender who victimizes the poor and exploits the needy by concealing and hiding his interest charges. And next week we're going to sign in the White House the Wholesome Meat Act, and it means that the meat on... And it means that the meat on the family table will be pure and not rancid. That a mother can shop without fear of finding worms in a steak or a roast or wood splinters in the baby's hamburger. Isn't this a remarkable and wonderfully hopeful record in itself? Yet these are only some of the many happy new triumphs that we have won together for American families. The full record will show more consumer legislation enacted in the last 2 years than in all the 88 Congresses put together. And when the history of our time is written, it will testify that this administration, with your help after 180 years, finally proclaimed into the law of the land a consumer's Bill of Rights. And it's about time we did that too. And there is more, and there's much more that we have done together. It wasn't easy. Every step of the way there were voices and there were votes that said, no, not so fast. Don't try it. This hasn't been tried before. It's only a rehash of the old New Deal or the New Frontier. It costs too much money. Don't you know there's a war on and we can't have both butters and guns, or guns and butter? And you'll have to stop progress here at home. Or one side would cry, it's all for labor, or for the minorities. And the other side cried, it's all for the middle class. And I have heard them all, and we have answered them all. And our answer is, yes, it's for labor. Yes, it's for the minorities. Yes, it's for the middle class. Yes, it's for the young and the old and the worker and the businessman and the farmer and the teacher and the student and the doctor and the patient. Yes, we said for once, you're going to be right. Our fight is not for part of America. Our fight is for all of America. But in the Congress, some closed their ears and their ranks. In vote after vote, the House members of the other party lined up like wooden soldiers of the status quo. 93% of the House Republicans voted to kill the Medicare bill. 90% of them voted to kill the poverty bill. 68% of them voted to kill our education bill. 66% of them voted to kill our civil rights bill. 80% of them voted to kill all the funds for model cities. 93% of them voted to kill all funds for our housing and rent supplement. And my friends, 72% of them voted to kill your minimum wage bill. And the only time they really said yes, an enthusiastic yes, was when they could vote to recommit a good bill, to bury in a blanket of rhetoric beneath the wave of Republican reaction. We need great Congresses again, not just good ones. They must match and they must surpass the 89th. And we're going to have to work. We're going to have to roll up our sleeve and put our shoulder to the wheel, and every man get to work and work through next November. We still have to meet the great tests of our time, improving our educational and our medical systems, rebuilding our cities, providing jobs for all who can work, ending lawlessness in our streets and controlling our crime and uniting our people in common and progressive purpose. This is our national agenda, and it can only succeed if there are men in Congress and men in the administration who will make it their personal agenda. We must work harder than ever to elect good men, to elect these men who will support these programs. It can be done. It will be done, because a nation depends on us not to fail and not to fall back, but to go on fighting and go on winning all over America. You have long stood in the front ranks of this fight for freedom. But here in Florida this winter, you have added bright new testimony to your resolve, and you've given new heart to all who stand with you in search for peace. I am very proud and I'm very grateful, Mr. Meany, for the resolution that you all have passed here in support of freedom cause. It's a ringing declaration of your firm resistance to aggression, and that staunch spirit is constantly personified by that great courageous leader, Mr. Labor, George Meany. And I thank him. And I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart. I know that many of Labor's sons have left their parents and have left their homes to risk their lives for liberty and freedom in Vietnam. And I know that is torture for you, as it is for me. I know that you regret every single dollar that we spend on war, dollars that we want to spend on the works of peace here at home. The peacemakers are out there on the field. The soldier and the statesman need and welcome the sincere and the responsible assistance of concerned Americans. But they need reason much more than they need emotion. They must have a practical solution and not a concoction of wishful thinking and false hopes, however well-intentioned and well-meaning they may be. It must be a solution that does not call for surrender or for cutting and running now. Those fantasies hold the nightmare of World War III and a much larger war tomorrow. It must be a solution that does not call for stepping up our military efforts to a flashpoint where we risk a much larger war today. The easiest thing in the world for the president to do is to get in a larger war. It's very difficult to continue day after day to pressure the enemy without involving yourself in additional problems. For as long as I have borne the responsibility of conducting our foreign policy, I have known what I want you to know, and that is, and I want all America to know, that it's easier to protest a policy than to conceive one. And so your president has followed a rather simple practice. If someone has a plan, I listen to it. If it seems worth pursuing, I ask the best Americans that I can find to give me their judgment on it. And I've asked your president a good many times for his judgment on these matters. And I am going to continue down the center of the road doing my duty as I see it for the best of all my country, regardless of my polls or regardless of the election. I will devote my days and my nights to supporting and to supplying 500,000 of the bravest men who ever wore the American uniform and who ever left these shores to fight to protect us. I will honor and respect our sworn commitments to protect the security of Southeast Asia, because in protecting their security, I protect your security and your home and your family too. We will not now betray the troubled leaders and the hopeful people of that region who have relied on Uncle Sam's word to shield them from aggression, not after other presidents who preceded me gave their solemn word. I'm going to see that that word is carried out. At all times and in all ways and with all patience and all hope, your president and your country will strive for peace. Let no man, friend or foe, American or Asian, mistake our meaning. Peace will come, I am convinced of that. But until peace does come, I will continue with the support of our loyal, determined people to hold the line that we've drawn against aggression and to hold it firm and to hold it steady. In all that I do, I will be strengthened by the powerful testimony for freedom that you sons of labor have given here in this hall. Your courageous men of labor have supported our fighting men every time they needed you. And you have spoken as free men under fire must speak. Now, may all the world hear you, and may God bless you for what you've said and what you've done, and may God keep those men until we can bring them back home in honor and in victory.